Okay, welcome in. In this video, we are going to be showing how you can do some simple player tracking. So looking at a specific player and their performance over time. We're just going to kind of give the basics of one way to do it. And of course, there are many different ways that you can expand it. It's a flexible approach that you can do different things with it, but pretty powerful nonetheless. Let's get right into it. I'm loading the data from NFL FastR, which we talked about in another video. Amazing data source. We'll be using that data here. You can see I have it loaded into my environment. This is through week 8. So I'm making this video just after week 8 finished in the NFL. So we have all that data. So let's say that I want to look at the performance of wide receivers over time. So for example, let's say I want to look at all of, I don't know, Jakobi Meyers, who's on the Patriots. I want to look at all of his performance. One way I can do that is just check out all the data where receiver player name is equal to Jakobi Meyers. But then I get, I kind of get a lot of columns. It's useful, but I want a way to pare this down and to look at it in a more intuitive way. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to build a function, and we're going to call it function wide receiver performance. And remember, I like to capitalize FUN at the beginning so that we know it's a function. And we're going to pass this to this function a player name. So that's going to be the only input of our function. And to start, we're going to pull out all the data that has that player name. So data received player name equals player, which is passed into our function here. And then we're just going to aggregate a lot of stats of that player for the year. So one, clear stat is yards, and we can use the aggregate function, aggregate data player. In this case, it's going to be, the column is going to be yards gained. Let me just define data player in our actual environment so that, we can kind of see the fields pre-populate. So Jakobi Meyers, data player Jakobi Meyers. And now I'm going to aggregate data player yards gained. I want to do that by, let's do it weekly. So we're looking at the performance over the year by list data player week. And let's say I want to sum. So I want to find the total yards. That's not right. I want to find the total yards each week. And, I can output this to the console, and I see that, here's the yardage for a player for each week. And again, there's a variety of things you can do. You can look at specific plays. You might have to remove fixed for like laterals or fixed for penalties, but we're just doing the very basics here. So those are our total yards. Maybe we want to do total. We want to do total receptions. So in this case, do I want to do total receptions? What was it I wanted to look at? No, I wanted to look at YAC. Sorry. We can do our YAC. So data player yards after catch, and we can sum that as well. We can look at air yards, so where they're getting targeted on the field. And you can notice here, the nice part is once I've written like one piece of code, it's a little bit easier to write the rest. I'm just kind of changing little parts of it. So maybe we want to look at air yards. That's another column in our data set. So we aggregate air yards. And there was one more that I wanted to look at, but it is escaping me. But I would like it to be an even for, let's look at first downs. Let's see how many first downs the player got. So we can do data first downs, FD for first downs, and FD, first down, I think is the, we'll look at first down pass. And then we basically have all of our different data for this player. So, we can run this, we can peek into it. We already saw the total yards. We can look at total YAC, and you'll notice that you see this NA for total YAC. This is something you'll run into a lot with any data set you see. Some of the rows are going to be NA. And the annoying thing about NA is like, you could have a ton of numerics and that sum works just fine. But if you have a single NA, the whole sum is going to be NA. So the way to do this is, the way I like to do this is just to define some function X where we're summing X and removing NAs. This NA.rm means NA remove. So, we're aggregating this function that takes X and we're summing X and we're removing NAs, and that will fix the issues we have here. So that works. Let's see if we have the same issue with air yards. We do. We have one NA. So I'm just going to use this same function here. Come on. Sorry, my computer is slow. Needs updates. Let me get that so it's in line. Data air yards is all set now, and then data first down. That is all set. So we have all of our data, which is great. And now we want to kind of concatenate it, put it together, and return it. So let's define this data return, and we're going to say that's the data table. Let's define the player. So we have we have the name of the player on hand. So player equals player. Week equals, we'll say data yards group one. Data yards group one is just this group one. It's the week term. And then we can fill in all of our data. So yards equals data yards. X is just going to be the second column, which is actually the number, of yards or yak or whatever. So yards is data yards. Air. I'm gonna make this bigger so you can see it easier. Air yards equals data. Oh, I want to do yak first. Yak equals data. Yak X. Air yards equals data. Air yards X, and first downs equals data first down X. Okay. And player is not found. I didn't define it in my session. So let's just define it. Jakobi Meyers. And there we go. So now we're going to get this awesome data where we have the player, the week, and all of their different statistics. And again, if you were a little bit confused here, just take some time and look at this piece of code. Each line is the same. We're just grabbing out, the number of metrics or whatever statistic from the data tables we defined here. And then the last thing we want to do is just return data return. So now we have this awesome function, and we did a bunch of work, but now we have a very flexible piece of code that we can use. And we did Jakobi Meyers is on the Patriots, but we can do, another big wide receiver. Let's say we want to do Cooper Kupp, who's been having an awesome year. We just pass in the name Cooper Kupp, and voila, we get all of this awesome data for Cooper Kupp. And you can see he's had a pretty good year. We can look at Jamar Chase, who's also had a good year. And boom, you can see, 200-yard game. Jamar Chase has had a nice year himself. So let's say we want to actually, visualize some of this data, because visualization is super important. So I'm going to pull out Deebo Samuel's data, and we're going to assign it to data plot, this thing called data plot. And now we're going to try to make it look pretty with our ggplot tools. So first things first, I have data in wide format. I want to change this to long format. The way I'm going to do that is by melting on a week. So data plot equals melt data plot week. Or sorry, melt data plot ID vars equals week. And I get an error. I was doing this before and I get a little bit of an error. Yeah. So the problem here is I have this player. I have this player column, which, I basically have two ID columns that I want to work with. I have the player and the week column. So that's a little bit annoying. We're not going to go into how to fix that for now. That's a little bit more, not advanced, but it's just a separate topic than what we're talking about. So let's just say for data plot, we make things nice and easy, and we assign player, we remove player. So we just assign that to null, which can, again, there's ways to get around this and ways to fix it, but just not the scope of this video. And now my data plot melt will work much better. I have my my week, the variable, the metric I'm looking at, and the value. So in week 4, there were 156 yards. So just a little bit of simplification there. And now we can easily pass this into our ggplot, which is great. So data plot AES, our X is going to be our week, our Y is going to be our value, and our we want our color to be our variable. We want to color by the metric we have. I'm going to go ahead and facet wrap by the variables. We have a different plot for each facet. And we're going to look at geom point, and we hit run. Sorry, my ggplot is a little bit slow. Need to get those updates. And there we go. We have data now for each week. We can visualize it. You'll notice that the first downs is like way lower, which makes sense because the scale is quite different for first downs. You get like 3 first downs a game where you get 100 yards a game. So let's set scales equal free and replot this. And this looks much better. So this is very cool, right? Like you can track how players doing over time. You can see Deebo had a really high yak this year, his second highest of the year. You can see how his air yards maybe are kind of increasing over the past couple weeks. This is maybe as interesting for someone like Brandon Ayuk, who has had a tough start to the year. We can run this same code very easy, and we can see if his usage is going up. Definitely at higher air yards, higher yak this week. So maybe he's kind of coming back. We can also look at Tyler Lockett, who's been a really interesting case with Russell Wilson out. And this probably will be clear. You can kind of see like after Russell Wilson went out, he sort of had a dip. His air yards went way down. Although this past week with Geno Smith against the Jaguars, I think it was, he kind of rebounded and had a ton of yards. So anyways, very, very cool, flexible code. I did this just for wide receivers. It's easy to do for running backs, quarterbacks, whatever. You kind of just want to adjust the code in here. We returned some code, and you can always return more variables just by adding them if you want. And then, we can make nice plots like this to visualize a player's performance over time. So this is some intro player analytics. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon for the next video. Thanks.